So can José Ramaphosa keep the lights on? He's the electricity minister chosen by President Cyril Ramaphosa. A civil engineer by training, he hopes to turn around Eskom's fortunes. Some have said he's talking too soon. Ramaphosa was the head of investment and infrastructure in the presidency. Will this experience offer him any leverage in the work that awaits him? Well, let's speak to energy expert Mr. Adil Nchabeleng. Adil, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning and thank you.
No, it's always a pleasure to have you with us. So the minister hasn't shied away from the microphone. We love it as the media. But there are those that are saying perhaps it will be to his own detriment, that he's promising a lot too soon, having no real appreciation of the extent of the problem within Eskom. What are your views of some of his statements post that appointment?
I think, look, it's a breath of fresh air, given the fact that now there's a younger person within the electricity ministry. You know, he's our age group and he's experienced and he has some knowledge with regards to electricity generation. He's much more focused on infrastructure. But the appointment was good in a sense that it restores confidence in the fact that South Africa is currently in an ailing economy situation. He appreciates and he understands the economic fundamentals of the struggles. In respect to his ability right now to turn around Eskom and bring back the lights that we're currently struggling with on load shedding stage 6, which is actually predicted that by winter we'll be sitting with stage 8 or even worse. That is going to be a mean feat to be seen, because by now we're talking about weeks to come. There should be a restoration of nothing less than 2,000 to 4,000 megawatts of power plants that are currently, all the units that are currently out of schedule, which means they are broken down, they haven't been fixed and maintained. And that's a situation. So if he cannot go into the deep end of it and not entertain all the frills and the side discussions and the interests, he will be successful. But he needs to focus on the job. The real problem right now within Eskom has got nothing else to do with all other issues. It's related to Eskom power plants that are failing to come up into the grid, that have not been maintained, that are broken down, that are continuously going off as units. And those are the problems that, as the Minister of Electricity, he should pinpoint, prioritize, and go deep dive in dealing with them. Now he's got the National State of Disaster Act that empowers him to bypass certain, sort of rudimentary processes of PFMA, as well as regulations that stops them from doing certain things. Now there is no more all of that impediments. He can go in and saying what is the required resources, speak to power station managers, get their commitment in terms of bringing back those units into the grid. He will be successful. But if he goes around having talk shows, talking to everybody else and entertaining everybody else's interest, and not only that, taking interest from strong lobby groups that are going to be pushing for certain particular interests, it's going to be
But is that not beneficial? Because in most instances, you are told that when you get on the job, the first thing is to consult widely and find out from others what could be the solution. So you're saying there's no more time for that. He needs to go into Eskom and do what he needs to do. But how would he be in a position to know if he doesn't consult?
There's 11 months left till the next election. There's 10,000 megawatts, which is 6,000 to stop load shedding, 4,000 to have some reserve required. So he needs to go and focus on 10,000 recovery of 10,000 megawatts recovered into the units. The more he talks, the more he consults. This problem has been going on for over 5 years. We've already diagnosed it. We know already the prognosis, which is the solution and the course of action that needs to be taken to solve load shedding. There is no issue of whether we are unclear about what is currently the problem to load shedding. The problem of load shedding is Eskom's coal power plants that needs to be fixed, maintained, refurbished, brought back into operation. So that issue doesn't require consultations. He
then
just needs to get into the deep dive and
let's
resolve
get to
the issues.
The immediate problem. He jumps in at a time when Eskom has been in conversation with the Department of Environmental Affairs. That will be a true test now of the state of disaster, because they have requested exemptions to build the 3 exhaust stacks, because they want to now have gases directly from the unit. They want to have it directly into the atmosphere. They want those exemptions, but there's already been a back and forth between the DG and Eskom, where they are being told that there was no application, there was merely guidance that they sought around the process to follow. Time wasting, a lot of critical time. I mean, just that alone. Do you see a situation where government will do away with the mentality of old of slowing down the process or taking their time and just get on with projects and make a call, like in this instance?
Absolutely. And that is what I thought with regards to the national state of national disaster, all right, the National State of Disaster Act. It gives them the powers to overnight bypass, make calls, and come up with solutions that are intermediate and are immediately applicable. You're not going to be now hamstrung by government bureaucracy of paperwork and process and procedure follow-up. He is already a minister in his capacity to can make a call to the president, to the ministers in charge, to say, with regards to this particular rule, according to what we think as an assessment, can we come up with this proposal, and can you relax XYZ? Can you give us this permit? Remember, the standard emissions, the minimum emission standard regulation was created by South African Department of Environmental Affairs. It's not something that was imposed because we have already done certain things. We imposed our minimum standard emission standard on ourselves, which means we slowed ourselves down.
There are 4 applications where you even have to consult the municipality, in this case in Kangala district. So there's quite a lot to be done. Yeah, but we've been hearing that they were still stuck on seeking guidance. Everybody was sending emails back and forth, and actually there was no application to speak of.
You rightly said it, too much consultation. When the problem is power plants, generators, as well as the units that needs to be brought back into action. Those are the focus areas. In respect to the diagnosed problem, you go to that problem and you do a deep dive solution to the problem. Anything that relates around it, that is peripheral, you then bring in the current stakeholders, ministers, the engaged DG or whoever, and overnight, within 24 hours, you declare that we are under the national state of disaster. As a result, we need XYZ done, and failing to which, the disaster status does not help anybody, because it will just be ordinary business as usual. Right now, we're not in a business as usual environment. We're in a catastrophic situation where load shedding is crippling the whole country, is destroying lives and livelihoods, and it's completely paralyzing the economy. If you come back with a mindset of saying, I'm going to do parallel consultation here and there, this one and that, you're going to waste time. We made an advice to say, Minister, if you feel you need to do broad consultation, call for a colloquium, 1-day colloquium or 2 days colloquium, everybody under one umbrella, all stakeholders, base load, coal, hydro, as well as gas, all under one thing, nuclear, you call renewables, wind, solar, alternatives into bio, whatever fuels, you call fuel, fossil fuel players, people in the coal industry and everybody else. Then you call the alternatives, battery storage and everybody. Sit there, give us your prerogatives according to IRP 2019, Integrated Resource Plan of 2019, on what your priorities are going to be and how you need our support.
That colloquium could be very disastrous in 2 days, because we know there are competing interests.
No.
So one wonders how that conversation, where many are debating from their position, how that type of a conversation would take place.
It will be a beautiful colloquium, because for once we will have all the players under one roof, broken up into commissions as usual. Each commission will host a particular stream that focuses on a particular interest, and people will go in and debate what is their best interest, not to come up with problems. Technology is already there. Electricity generation is a known science. You don't need to restart it from anywhere. But the minister has to be very clear in terms of what his agenda is. He's got a 6,000 megawatts target right now in the immediate environment to resolve, so that load shedding ends. By 2024, if load shedding is not ended, it will be a disaster for the ANC in terms of the elections. This is not what they want to achieve. So I am of the view that the minister will go in there and saying, guys, immediate priority problem is a coal plant. Must be brought back into line. We must recover at least 6,000 megawatts. And then anything else is additional and supplementary. We do it parallel in respect to restoration of the current plants available. And once you do that, you have restored confidence. People will not be angry, upset, as well as in this agile state where, you don't know what's coming and going. We're losing a lot of investment. I meet up with a lot of international players, and when we travel overseas, people know about our problems. And they're saying, but how can you be so careless in managing your infrastructure to a point where it must collapse by default? And this is the situation we're in. So the minister has no time.
And he has more appreciation because he's been running the infrastructure and investment portfolio within the presidency. He knows very well the conversation around electricity when it comes to those that could have possibly invested. There wasn't significant investment forthcoming because of the energy issues in this country. But then I want to take you back to this unit, the immediate problem at Eskom with those exhaust stacks that they want to build. When I listened to Minister Creasy last week, when they were briefing us, just giving us more detail around the regulations, she went on to state and caution that there should be no misunderstanding around the state of disaster. It is not there to help certain individuals or organizations circumvent the environmental laws. There are no exemptions in that respect. So for me as an ordinary man, I thought you've got Eskom here that seeks those exemptions. Would this then be possible? Because there are competing interests. For them, we spoke to the department last week as well, Environmental Affairs, and they said it is an unenviable position they find themselves in. There's this that Eskom requests, but there's also environmental laws that must be complied with in this country. Just your views, what should be the decision that the minister takes around this request by Eskom?
The state of national disaster already declares that if you're in a disaster, you must take every means necessary to resolve the problem. So we cannot say minimum emission standards are a priority to a state of disaster. So that's one. Right now, because we are in a state of disaster, to recover the current plant that is currently out on schedule with regards to not currently producing electricity, because of minimum emission standards, is actually a suicidal process where we have self-suicide, we're actually committing a self-suicide, where we're killing ourselves on the basis of pleasing a requirement that can be deferred and actually mitigated with other solutions. Remember, we have not even attended to the issue of what we call the HELE, high efficiency, low emission standards that are required for Eskom to actually clean up its coal. There is already technology that should have been by now implemented according to the IRP that cleans the coal and reduces the emission levels. And that should have been the mitigation process by now to say, okay, we're going to implement this technology, we're going to implement this process, and as a result, we need that time frame whereby we will be given a relaxation period, 5-year minimum. Everywhere you go in the world, there is a current disaster of energy. With regards to, in the West, you're having a energy shortage and gas shortage with regards to their power plants and everything. And what are they doing? They're all going back to coal power plants because coal is the only known cheap solution to produce electricity most efficiently and proven over hundreds of years. So they're going back to that. And they are bypassing all the standards that they had set themselves up of CO2 emissions and other things that they had set. And they're saying we're not doing it for a permanent purpose. We're doing it as an interim measure to resolve the problem that we're in. The long-term solution is we're implementing a just energy transition over a period of 20 to 30 or 50-year period of phasing out to a net zero level. That's where it should be actually argued at. But immediately right now, the state of nation of disaster is in place to resolve this current immediate 1 to 5 year solution. In that period, they should come up with regulations. As I said to you, this minimum standard emissions were actually imposed on by the ANC government as well as the Department of Mineral and Resources. And the Department of Mineral Resources minister is not a super minister. Minister Creasy is not a super minister, he's an ordinary minister that should be taking instructions from other bodies. For instance, the presidency and the Minister of Electricity. So if the Minister of Electricity requires that exemption, he should go in there and take it and get it and make sure that he saves the party from its disastrous polls in 2024 and bring back the current units. The units are there. There's 21,000 megawatts of units that are broken down, not working. And if he doesn't focus his eyeballs on that particular problem and he entertains the noise around and he goes in and talks about minimum emissions and all of those problems, I'm telling you, he will be the most disastrous minister in the history of South Africa.
Let's see how he handles this 21,000. Let's see how he handles this 21,000. Adil, thank you very much for your time this morning. That was energy expert Adil Nchabeleng. More news on the other side of this break. Do stay with us.